We continue now at the top of Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 67b. This Daf is sponsored by Sean Kashani. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or a Daf, please see the description box below and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing the machlokus between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi when you have a situation of a ger that marries a mamzeres. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that is a relationship that is forbidden. It's yesh kiddushin. There's a kiddushin in that situation, but it's a kiddushin ba'avera. It's also yesh avera. And that fits in with the second case of the Mishnah. The second case of the Mishnah lists a bunch of cases where there's kiddushin and avera, and we say the child follows the pogum. In this case, by the ger that marries the mamzeres, the child would be a mamzer, and therefore the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, kol makom de seifa, when it says in any situation at the end of the Mishnah, meaning any situation where there's a kiddushin and that kiddushin is ba'avera, so would we say that the child follows the pogum? Lasuye ger shenasa mamzeres, that kol makom comes to include the case of ger shenasa mamzeres, which is not listed in the Mishnah. We're including that case as well. That works according to Rabbi Yehuda. Elo'iyah amrit Rabbi Yossi, but if you're going to say the Mishnah follows Rabbi Yossi, kol makom dereisha keda'amrin, the kol makom at the beginning of the Mishnah that we've already explained on the previous Amud. Ezuzu keda'amrin, and the ezuzu in the reish at the beginning of the Mishnah, that also we've already explained on the previous Amud. Elo kol makom de seifa, but the kol makom at the end of the Mishnah, lasuye mai, what's that going to include according to Rabbi Yossi? Because again, according to Rabbi Yossi, it's not an avera by a situation of a ger shenasa mamzeres. But the Gemara says but according to your reasoning, if you can ask that question on Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, ezuzu de seifa lamali. According to Rabbi Yehuda, what's the ezuzu at the end of the Mishnah? That we haven't explained either. Ela aidi de tana reisha ezuzu, tana seifa ezuzu. Rather, what are you going to say according to Rabbi Yehuda? Since the beginning of the Mishnah says ezuzu, so that's the same thing. It says it at the end as well. Hachanami here also, when it comes to the shita of Rabbi Yossi, aidi de tana reisha kol makom. Since it says in the reisha the phrase kol makom, tana nami seifa kol makom. It says in the seifa as well the phrase of kol makom. And the Gemara continues, Gufa, returning to what we said above, Ki asa Ravin amar Rabbi Yochanan, when Ravin came, he said that Rabbi Yochanan said, Ba'umos halach achar hazachar, when it comes to the nations, we follow the male, and nisgairu halach achar hapogam shebishneim, and if they convert, so then we follow the one that is more blemished among the two of them. This is something that we quoted on the previous Amud, and we said we would explain. The Gemara is now explaining. What does it mean when it says by the nations we follow the male? The Gemara says Kidatanya, it's like we learned in the following brisa. From where do we know that one of the other nations, let's say, has relations with a Cananis, v'holid ben, and they have a child, they have a son? How do we know that you're allowed to purchase that son as an eved? Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, it says also from those who live among you, mehem tiknu, from them you can purchase. All of this will be explained by Rashi. Now I might think even an Eved who has relations with a Shifcha from the other nations, v'holid ben, and they have a son, I might think that you're able to purchase that son as an Eved. That's talking in a situation again where the Shifcha is from the other nations. Talmud Lomer asher holidu bi'artzachem, the pasuk says that they gave birth in your land. Min hanolad b'artzachem, it means they were born in your land. V'lo min hagarim b'artzachem, and not from those who dwell in your land. And Rashi explains, what does it mean that with the nations we follow the male? Meaning, for what practical halacha do we follow the male? When they haven't yet converted. From where do we know that we follow the male? And the answer is like the Brisa teaches. The Brisa means as follows. From where do we know? Let's say you have someone from the other nations of the world. Not from the nations of Eretz Yisrael. From the nations of Eretz Yisrael, from those nations, the halacha is lo sechaya kol neshama, no one can live. So now you have someone from among the other nations, a male from the other nations, not from the nations where you have to kill everyone out. Sheba'al HaKananis, he has relations with a Cananis. Shehi bechlal lo sechaya. Now that Cananis, she's part of the commandment of lo sechaya. You're not allowed to let her live. It's the same. It's not only Cananis, it would be also someone from Chivi, a woman from Chivi, or a woman who's a Yevusi. But all of those nations that live in that area of Eretz Yisrael are called Canaanim, even if they're not all technically Canaanim. Techsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, Eretz Canaan. We refer to it as Eretz Canaan. So the point is, how do you know you're allowed to purchase that son as an Eved? Meaning the Shadinam le Basar Zachar umutter Chiosam. The point over here is you follow the male who's not a Kanani, and you say you're allowed to let that child live. That child follows the male, and instead you can purchase that child as an Eved. So we learn from the pasuk, Talmud Lomer v'gam mibnei hatoshavim. That's what the pasuk says. It says, Mibnei hatoshavim, ule'el minei ksiv, yavduch v'amascha asher yu'loch me'es hagoyim, asher svivoseichem she'enon mizayin umos. Means from the nations that aren't from the 7 nations of Eretz Canaan. Mehem tiknu eved v'yamar, from them you purchase slaves. V'samech lei, and it says near that, v'gam mibnei hatoshavim, also from the toshavim, kolomar v'lo mishar umos levadim, she'en b'hem me'irvuv, sheva umos. Not only from those who don't have any mixture of the 7 nations, those obviously. Ela af mibneihem shemo Molidim osam toshavim haboim logori mochem umolidin min haknanios. What the pasuk means is, even those who come, they come to live among you, and they have children from those women who are Kananios. Mehem tiknu, from them also you're allowed to purchase. But then the Gemara said, how do you know it's not the other way around? What if you have a situation where the shivcha is from the umos and the eved he is from Canaan? Min hanoladim bi'artzachem. So from that we learn, because the pasuk says it specifically min hanoladim bi'artzachem, those born in your land, meaning asher holidu b'nei shar umos mi benos artzachem. The point is, if it's the sons from other nations, the men from other nations, they have children from the daughters of this nation, those who live in this land, shalei dasan ba'artzachem, meaning in your land the birth is, dahainu imoseim, meaning their mothers are from your land. In that situation, you're allowed to let that child live. If the male is not from Canaan, v'lo min hagorim b'artzachem, but not from those who live in your land, meaning sheholidu b'nei artzachem b'makomos acherim, meaning that men from your land, meaning Canaanim, went ahead and they went to other nations and had children mibenos sharumos, from the daughters of other nations, uvo habanim logor kan etzel avosam, and the sons are coming to live here by the father. Those do not count. So meaning to say, if the sons are coming to live here by the fathers are from Canaan, so then we say it's not true, you're not supposed to let them live, you're not supposed to purchase them as avodim. V'toras kohanim garsina, now the text in Toras kohanim is v'lo min hakananim sheba'artzachem kilomar shenoldu min hakananim. They have a slightly different girsa, not from the Canaanim in your land, meaning from those born from Canaanim, from those born from males who are Canaanim. In any case, the point over here is you follow the father. So if the father is Canaani, so then it's part of Lo Sechai, you can't let him live. And if the father is not going to be a Canaani, so then you can purchase him as a slave, the child is a slave, and you can allow him to live. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. Ravin said that Rabbi Yochanan said, Nisgairu, when you're talking about the 2 nations, if they convert, Halach achar hapogam shebishneim, then we follow the one that is most blemished among them. And the Gemara says, B'mai, what exactly is the case over here? Ilema b'mitzri shenasa amonis. If you're going to say the case is a mitzri, meaning a male that is a mitzri, he marries a woman who is an amonis, and in that case we're following the most blemished, which would be the mitzri, because the halach is ammoni is prohibited, only the male ammoni is prohibited, not the ammonis, not the female ammoni. So then, my pagamika, but what's the blemish of the ammonis? Ammoni velo ammonis. It says an ammoni and not an ammonis. There's no pagam whatsoever by an ammonis, so it wouldn't make sense to say the pagam shebishneim, the more blemished among them, because there has to be a blemish in both of them. So Ella, rather, it must be, what it means is as follows. But Ammoni shenasa mitzris. What it means is you're talking about an Ammoni that marries a mitzris. And again, an Ammoni is prohibited. Let's say an Ammoni converts. He's prohibited for all generations from entering into the congregation, from marrying a Jew. But when it comes to a mitzris, so as we said, that's only 3 generations that is going to be prohibited from marrying into the community. And we're saying that if they convert, you follow the most pagam. In this case, you follow the Ammoni, and the Gemara explains. V'i zocher have, if the child they have is a male, v'zocher have a high shadya abbas reidi day, then it follows him, it follows the father, and is going to be usher forever. It's not going to be mutter in 3 generations. V'im nekeva have it. Now, if it's a female that is born, so there we would apply ammoni v'lo ammonis. It would actually be more lenient to treat her as an ammonis. So there, shadya abbas redida. So there we're going to have her follow the mother, meaning to say the mitzris, and we're going to say again, it will be permitted in 3 generations. And Rashi explains, Nisgairu halachachar hapogam shabishneim mayi. Again, it said if they convert, then you follow the one that is most blemished. What does that mean? Le'inyan avdos lekalamemer nisgairu. Now, when we're talking about avdos, slavery, that you can't talk about converting. We must be talking about something to do with yichus, something to do with marrying into the community. Now, we don't find any distinctions between different nations when they convert, except between an Ammoni and a Mitzri. Because the Ammoni is also forever. We said when it comes to the Mitzri, as we said, it's only until the third generation. So how can you find a child that has blemishes from both sides? It's saying the most blemish from them. If you're talking about a Mitzri that marries an Ammonis, and you're saying the child follows the Mitzri, and it's going to be also until the third generation. Because an Ammonis is permitted immediately. That's the more lenient one. So then Rashi continues, my pagamika b'tzad ha'em. What pagam is there in the side of the mother? There is no blemish. Because they convert, it's going on both of them, it's plural. It sounds like when you have a situation of a pagam, a blemish, it's going on both of them. And over here by the mother there is no pagam, so that can't be the case. So then the Gemara said it must be the other way around. We're talking about an Ammoni that marries a Mitzris. Rashi just notes Mitzri v'Adomi when it comes to a Mitzri and an Adomi. Adomi is like a Mitzri, 3 generations. Asabahem nikevos kizucharim. So there the females are treated just like the males. It's not like by an Ammoni where the prohibition is only by the Ammoni and not by the Ammonis. Kidam Rabbi Yavamas, that's explained in Yavamas. And so the Gemara said, Izachar havlad, if the child is a male, Shadya Basar Ammoni follows the Ammoni, V'isr Zacharim Shaboliolim, the Isr by the males is forever by Ammoni. V'lo Amrinan Shadya Basar Mitzris, we don't say follow the mother who's a Mitzris, V'yehei Dor Shlishi Mutter, that would make the third generation Mutter. V'yinekeva, if the child's in a Keva, Shadya Basar Mitzris, then do follow the Mitzris. V'lo Basar Ammoni, don't follow the Ammoni, because Lemeshari Ladida, that would permit her, Misham V'lo Ammonis, because an Ammonis is not prohibited. Ela B'no Yehei Mutter Shu Shlishi, rather, instead we're going to say that her son is going to be Mutter, because he's already third generation. Diamar Kra Lahem Halach Achar Psul, and again, that's what it says, Lahem, you follow their Psul, and so again, you're following the Pegam Shebishneim, you're following the one that is more blemished. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, Kol she'ein lo olav kiddushin, any situation where the kiddushin does not take effect with her, but she can have a kiddushin take effect with others. Essentially, the Mishnah was talking about cases of arayas, as we're going to see cases of arayas where the punishment is either kares or misas bezdin. So in those situations, we say the child is a mamzer. And the Gemara says, Menohani mili, from where do we know this? And Rashi over here notes, Menohani mili de'in kiddushin tovsin b'chayve krisis. What the Gemara means is, how do we know that kiddushin doesn't take effect when you have situations of arayas that are chayve krisis? Aval havlad mamzer, in terms of how do we know that the child is a mamzer, that we know from other sources already. Naf kolon milo yikach ishas eishas aviv v'lo yigale knaf aviv, talks about the fact that a person can have eishas aviv, the wife of his father, v'samach leilo yavo mamzer, and it says near that about a mamzer. Umukminon la b'yavamas b'shomeres yavam shel aviv. It says over there in Yavamas, we're talking about the Shomeres Yavam of his father. Shehilo Eishes Achi Aviv Shi Bekares, to him, that's the wife of the brother of his father, that's considered with Kares. Umehachi Alfina La B'Yavamas Beperka Choletz, the Chol She'ein La Olav Kiddushin Havlad Mamzer. This is the source that we learn out in Yavamas, that anytime you have a situation where the Kiddushin doesn't take effect, so the child is a Mamzer. So the fact that the child is a Mamzer, that we already know. The Gemara wants to know, how do you know by Chayve Krisus that the Kiddushin does not take effect? And the Gemara answers, Dami Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Ummatu ba mishum de Rabbi Yanai, some determine that it's really in the name of Rabbi Yanai. Rav Acha brei Derav, Ummatu ba mishum Rabbi Yossi Haglili, and Rav Acha brei Derav, he determines that it's in the name of Rabbi Yossi Haglili. In any case, says as follows, Amar Kra, the Pasuk says, V'yatsa mi beis, so it's talking about divorce, that she leaves his house, V'alcha v'haisel ish acher, and she goes and marries another man. It uses the word acher, and so we understand from that, la'cherim v'lo lekrovim. She marries other men, but krovim, relatives, arayas, so there the kiddushin is not going to take effect. And the Gemara says, Maskefla Rabbi Abba asks, Ve'ema la'acher v'lo leben, why don't we say that she marries others, but not to the son, meaning to say the son of her husband, meaning to say that's a case of Misas Bezdin. Maybe the Kiddushin only doesn't take effect by cases of Misas Bezdin. But the Gemara says, no, Ben Behed Yuksib Bey, the son, that already is an explicit pasuk. It says, Lo Yikach Ishas Eishas Aviv, a man is not allowed to take the wife of his father. That's exactly the situation over here. This woman is being divorced by the father, being divorced by her husband, who's the father of this particular son. And the pasuk already says the son, lo yikach ish asay shesaviv, he's not able to take the wife of his father. So that we already have a pasuk for. So acher lamali. So why does it say acher? Shma mino lacherim v'lo lekrovim. It's exactly what we said. She's to marry others and not relatives. That's how we know that the Kiddushin doesn't take effect, even by situations of chayve krisis, not only by chayve misas bezdin. But the Gemara still says, maybe both psukim are talking about the son. Both psukim are talking about Misas Bezdin. Why do we need to have two psukim? Means to say that one is lechatchila, you shouldn't have such a marriage which is again punishable by Misas Bezdin, and the other is b'diavad, that if you do it, it's not going to take effect. But the Gemara says, no, lechatchila me'achos isha nafka. Lechatchila we already know from achos isha, means to say the sister of his wife, that we already know from there. Uma'achos isha b'kares, just like the sister of his wife is a punishment of kares, lo tikdash, the Kiddushin is not going to take effect. Chayve misas bezin lo kol shekain, so that's kares, so certainly by chayve misas bezin, so you already know lechatchila, and so therefore this pasuk again is going to be talking about b'diavad, and therefore we still have the pasuk available when it comes to kares. But the Gemara still says ve'emu idi v'idi b'achos isha, but maybe both of them are talking about achos isha, and ha lechatchila hadiavad, one's talking lechatchila, and one is b'diavad. And the Gemara says enachinami. Indeed, that's exactly true. And so therefore, by achos isha, which is kares, we understand both lechatchila and b'diavad, the Kiddushin will not take effect. The Gemara says eshkachan achos isha, but we find that by achos isha, by the sister of his wife, sha'ar arayas minolan, from where we know other arayas. And to that the Gemara says, Yalfinan me'achos isha. It's all learned out from achos isha. Ma'achos isha miyuchedes she erva v'chayavan al zedona kares b'al shegagas achatas. Just like by the sister of his wife, it's unique. It's a case of arayas. You're chayev on, if you do it on purpose, you're chayev kares. By mistake, it's a korban chatos. V'lo tafsi bo kiddushin, and the kiddushin does not take effect. Av kol she erva, so too by all arayas v'chayavan al zedona kares v'al shegagas achatas. If on purpose you're chayev kares, and by mistake it's a chayev chatos, lo tafsi bo kiddushin. So then the Kiddushin is not going to take effect. So essentially, achos isha is actually the source. And Rashi explains, V'dil mahal lechatchila hadiavad, maybe one pasuk is lechatchila, the other is b'diavad. Kilomar lo yikach lav shaluyu lo ben kiddushin, meaning when it says lo yikach, talking again about the situation of the son marrying the wife of his father, it doesn't mean the kiddushin doesn't work b'diavad kamar. Diavad kamar doesn't mean it doesn't work after the fact. El azhar shalo yikach, maybe it's just a warning not to be mekadesh the wife of his father. Umiu ikadesh nahavi kiddushin, maybe if he does it, it is a good kiddushin. V'yasa haikra acharina lomar, so this other pasuk that we're bringing about, you have to marry acherim, that's coming to say the ein ba havaya klal, that the kiddushin doesn't work at all. Uli olam leben kamar, and maybe it's just talking about the son, meaning it's talking about the son where there's misas bezdin. Tekevan damar velo pirish krovim ein lach lavi biser zeh eloha asher shebekulon shekarim and akol. If you're going to include something, some kind of relative, only include the closest kind of relative. In this case, again, we're talking about the son, and maybe only over there the kiddushin does not take effect. But the Gemara then says, no, me'achos isha nafka. We learn from achos isha, it already says you're not allowed to be mekadesh by the sister of his wife, which is just a case of kares. Techsib bo lo sikach lo sikach shen. It says again lo sikach over there as well. It means you can't do a kiddushin. And then the Gemara ultimately said that it says you're not allowed to do a kiddushin lechatchila. And we learn out from the pasuk that says la'acherim and not to krovim, that even after the fact, when it comes to a situation where you are mekadesh achos isha, the kiddushin is not going to be chal. As Rashi explains, idi v'idi lo sikach. Again, by achos isha it says lo sikach, and then it also says v'haisel ishachar, which we don't know what kind of relative that's talking about. Ema idi v'idi b'achos isha. Let's say both of those are talking about achos isha. The kaven the eshkechon ba the azra lo lechatchila. Since we already find the warning by achos isha lechatchila, ikol amemar the hadar kasav v'haisel ishachar. So that's what it means. The pasuk is again reiterating v'haisel ishachar marries someone else lemuute balachosa, to exclude the husband of her sister she'ein lo ba havaya, where there is no kiddushin over there. Aval shar krovim, but when it comes to other relatives, the lo eshkechon behu azhar askicha, where we don't find a warning not to take them. Lechatchila lo kamar diavad lo nitvasu. Maybe over there we wouldn't say b'diavad, it's a problem. And again, the Gemara then said, Einochinami da achos isha l'chudo ikal migmar. Maybe we're only learning achos isha from this pasuk, but then dialfinan me achos isha. We learn from achos isha everything else. B'binyana b'mematzinu, we learn it through a mematzinu, just like we find it by achos isha. So too by all cases of chayve krisis. And the Gemara continues, Bishlama kulu asya. Now I understand that we can learn all the chayve krisos from achos isha. Elo eishes ish ve'eishes ach. But when it comes to eishes ish, a married woman, or eishes ach, that's the wife of the person's brother. So there, maybe we shouldn't be able to learn it from achos isha. They're exceptional. Ikal mifrach, you can refute the memotzinu. Mala achos isha shekain ein lo heter. When it comes to the sister of a person's wife, so there is no heter b'makom mitzvah in a situation of a mitzvah, meaning as we'll see like by Yibam. But tomer be'eishes ach. But when it comes to the wife of one's brother, sheyesh laheter b'makom mitzvah. There's a situation where you are allowed to marry the wife of your brother. When is that? That's b'makom mitzvah. That's in a situation of yibum. So maybe you can't compare the two. And eishes ish nami yikol mifrach. When it comes to the married woman as well, you can refute it. Ma'alahalach shekein ein laheter b'chaye osran. When it comes to all other cases of arayas, there's no heter when the other person who's creating the prohibition is alive. But Tomer Beishes Ish, when it comes to a married woman, she yesh laheter b'chaye osran. Even while her husband is alive, it's possible for there to be a heter. Let's say he divorces her. And so the Gemara says, Rav Yona v'iteimer Rav Huna breder Rav Yoshua. Rather, Rav Yona says, some people say it's Rav Huna breder Rav Yoshua. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Kol asher yosem mikol hatoevos ha'ela v'nichrasu. It says all of these abominations get kares. We compare all of them together. Hukshu kol harayos kulam la'achos isha. It's comparing all harayos to achos isha. Ma'achos isha lo tafsi ba kiddushin. Just like by achos isha, the kiddushin does not take effect. Af kol harayos kulam lo tafsi ba kiddushin. So too by all harayos, the kiddushin does not take effect. And the Gemara says, Ihachi, if so, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Meseches Amud Aleph.